Yuuki was a total loser who couldn't get a job or bag a chick. However, when he meets a powerful demon baddie who forces him to be her naughty slave, she makes him lose gallons until he becomes the strongest demon lord. But before all this freakiness happens, Yuuki gets rejected for the 200th time when he tries to get a job. Feeling devastated, he walks home ready to end his miserable life once and for all. But halfway to his house, the atmosphere suddenly starts getting foggy, and before Yuuki knows what's happening, he is teleported to a strange world. As he immediately checks Google Maps to find out where the heck he is, he learns that he is in a world known as Mato. Before he can fully understand what this so-called mato is all about, he is suddenly attacked by a giant monster. As he tries to run for his dear life, he meets a dead end and realizes the universe truly wants him dead and gone. At that moment, other monsters join the party, ready to feast on his flesh and use his bones as toothpicks. But as the monsters charge straight at him, a mysterious white-haired girl riding a massive beast suddenly swoops in and wipes them all out in one clean sweep. After taking down the last one, she introduces herself as Uzen, commander of the Demon Defense Force. Before Yuuki can even process that, more monsters start appearing out of nowhere, and Uzen immediately orders him to hop onto her beast. As he scrambles up, he tries to thank her for saving his pathetic skull, but she shuts him down instantly, telling him to stay quiet for being such a beta male. As they speed off, a truck suddenly rolls up beside them. Inside are three pretty girls who introduce themselves as Nei, Himari, and Suruga, also part of the demon force. When Uzen asks for a status report, they admit they still haven't found any survivors. Uzen then tells them to widen the search radius, and Nei activates her sensing powers. That's when she realizes the entire area is surrounded by monsters. With zero time to spare, Uzen orders the girls to take on the swarm while she escorts the survivor to safety. They split up immediately. The girls launch straight into battle, tearing through the beasts, while Yuuki continues riding with Uzen. After clearing out the monsters, the girls find a boy hiding and manage to rescue him. But as they drive him to safety, he reveals that his sister is still out there, in danger. Meanwhile, as Uzen carries Yuuki toward a safe zone, they suddenly spot a little girl being chased by a massive, terrifying monster. The poor kid tries to run, but in her panic, she slips and tumbles right off the edge of a cliff. But just before she cements herself to the ground, Uzen saves her with her beast and then finds herself surrounded by a massive horde of monsters. She tries to fight off the monsters, but when she gets completely overwhelmed by their terrifying number, she erects an invincible shield to protect herself, Yuuki, and the girl for the meantime. But as the beast starts smashing the barrier to get in, Uzen realizes she has to think of a solution fast before they all become forgotten memories. As time runs out, she decides to test her demon power, which can turn any beast into her slave, on a human for the first time. So as she walks up to Yuuki and the girl, she tells Yuuki she will make him her slave. Then she sends the little girl off to count how many boyfriends she wants in the future. When the little girl leaves for some privacy, Uzen tackles Yuuki to the ground and then instructs him to lick her finger if he wants them to survive. All his life, the simp has never touched a girl before, so this was a big deal for him. So as he obeys and licks her finger like a creep, magical chains bind him, and in a flash of terrifying light, he transforms into a demonic abomination. Seeing this, Uzen is surprised that her demonic powers worked on a human. But as she rides Yuuki like a horse, she's even more surprised at how easily he starts clapping all the monsters. In the blink of an eye, Yuuki completely decimates the beasts and eventually saves the little girl. However, the threat is far from over as all the dead monsters combine to form one giant freak of nature. But when the colossal freak attacks by hurling a massive stone at them, Uzen takes control of Yuuki again, and together they slice the beast into two, causing it to explode. As the dust settles, Uzen breaks the chains that bind Yuuki, and in an instant, he transforms back into his normal, boring self. Just then, the girls meet up with Uzen, and when they suggest they all head back to the base, Uzen commands them to go without her, saying she needs to have a private talk with Yuuki. As they leave, Uzen tells Yuuki she's thinking about making him her permanent slave. Hearing this, Yuuki freezes in shock, but before he can even think of protesting. She then explains that as his master, it's a must that she compensate him with a reward anytime he carries out a task. When she asks if he wants another kiss, Yuki's brain almost times out, but the chick grabs his face and forcefully French kisses him. After giving him his first kiss, Uzen then explains the terrible situation of things, saying that if the monsters enter the human world, the casualties will be uncountable, and that's why she intends to exterminate the vile creatures for good. When she asks Yuki again to work for her and help her achieve this goal by becoming her slave, Yuki tries explaining that he is more useless than a wet toilet paper. However, when he tells her that the only thing he is good at is cleaning, Uzen tells him that a cleaning guy is exactly what she is looking for. Realizing that he won't be a useless, disgusting loser in this world, but a hero, Yuki excitedly agrees to work with Uzen. With everything settled, Uzen then takes him to the Demon Force headquarters. But as they walk inside the house, the girls immediately ask who the ugly loser is. But when Uzen tells them Yuki is the new caretaker, Yuki is shocked to the bones, but the girls are excited to hear this. As Yuki tries to clarify that he is supposed to be one of them, Uzen tells him that during combat, he is her slave. But on an everyday basis, he is the caretaker of the house. When Yuki asks why he can't be one of the Demon Force, Uzen coldly tells him that a man is not allowed to join them. Later that evening, Yuki begins his job as the caretaker and makes sure the outside of the house is squeaky clean. But suddenly, a monster pops out of nowhere. And as it lunges at him, it's instantly stopped by an invisible barrier that prevents monsters from getting close to the house. Yuki is shocked to see monsters appear this close. But then the short pink-haired Barbie, Nei, walks up to him and starts explaining how this Mato world actually works. She tells him that Mato is as big as Tokyo and is divided into 10 different areas, and each area has its own Demon Force headquarters. As she keeps on yapping like some cheap Temu radio, another monster suddenly shows up outside the barrier. But this time, someone guns it down. Turns out it's Himari, and she's pissed that Yuki is wasting time chatting with Nei instead of doing his chores. When Yuki tries to tell the arrogant girl to relax, Himari gets even more furious. She starts poking him in the chest, yelling that he should be grateful Commander Uzen decided to save him, or he would have been chewed up and recycled as monster leftovers by now. That night, after Yuki makes a Michelin-star dinner for the lazy girls, they eat like spoiled royalties and then compliment his remarkable cooking skills. Getting praise for the first time in his pathetic existence gives Yuki a cheap dopamine rush, which gets him excited. But when he goes to get a refill, the shameless moron remembers that in the beginning, he was supposed to be a hero, not some useless maid. So when he reminds Uzen that he is supposed to help her out in the field, Uzen tells him to concentrate on his maid duties, explaining that she will only use him in the field when he is needed. When Yuki tries to protest, Himari shuts him up immediately by threatening him with her blade. She then warns him that it would be foolish to talk back at the commander. But Uzen immediately tells Himari to relax, saying this hasty attitude is why she can never have a man. Uzen then goes on to explain that even though some of them might be uncomfortable having a male caretaker in the house, Yuki is actually a skilled housekeeper, and they need him. However, she assures them that if Yuki misbehaves in any way, she will cut off his saggy balls. That night, while resting after cleaning all day, Yuki sees Himari's plotful body while going to take a shower. He freaks out. And as he hides from sight, he sees Suruga in her tiny form spying on him. As she transforms back to her normal size, she shows him her phone and then takes a picture of him in the compromising situation to use as blackmail material. When Yuki begs her to delete the picture, Suruga threatens to show it to Uzen so she can cut off his balls like she promised. But then, she tells him that if he doesn't want her to show Uzen, then he has to become her slave too. Yuki agrees, but while cleaning her room the following day, he devises a plan to snatch her phone and then delete the incriminating photo. But as he tries snatching her phone, Suruga beats him to it, and the idiot realizes that the only thing he managed to snatch was her smelly peach cover. While he's still holding her underwear, Suruga takes another pic of him to add to her endless list of blackmail material. After cleaning up Suruga's room, Yuki heads to the kitchen to finish up his chores. But he stops when he suddenly hears voices outside the house. When he goes out to look, he sees Uzen and Himari practicing, and he's amazed at how impressive their combat skills are. But when a monster suddenly shows up, Uzen attacks the beast at the speed of lightning, and just watching how fast Uzen fights almost gives Yuki a neurological disorder. But just then, Nei meets up with him and informs him that she, Uzen, and Himari will be attending a meeting, so he is stuck at home alone with Suruga. So, after the girls leave hours later, Suruga forces Yuki to be her personal masseuse. When she asks how he got so good at massages, Yuki reveals he used to massage his big sister back on Earth. Suruga is surprised to hear he has an older sister, so after the massage, she suggests they play a fighting game. Yuki agrees, but when he proudly warns her that he used to be the best gamer back on Earth, Suruga suggests they spice up the competition. She explains that the loser will have to strip for the winner, and Yuki accepts, confident that he can never lose to a girl. But after playing different rounds of Street Fighter, Suruga trashes the sore loser flawlessly, and then demands that, as the loser, he take off his shorts. When Yuki tries telling her how inappropriate it is for a girl to see a guy's drilling machine, Suruga insists that she's curious to see how big his Excalibur is. Yuki still disagrees, insisting they should keep the show PG-13 for YouTube. But Suruga tells him to screw the rating, and as she transforms into her giant form, she pins him down with her enormous cake. However, when she forcefully takes off his shorts, she is heartbroken to see how tiny weeny the idiot's eggplant is. So she bursts out laughing because even a day-old brat could never have such a pathetic size. Suddenly, they hear a trembling noise outside the house. As they rush outside to find out what's going on, they see that a giant monster is punching the barrier protecting the house, trying to get in. Suruga immediately transforms into her Hulk size, but as she tries fighting off the monster, she's completely overwhelmed when a second monster attacks from behind. Seeing Suruga get beaten by the monsters, Yuki immediately thinks of helping, but remembers that he can't transform into his beast form without Uzen. As he thinks of what to do, he suddenly remembers that he was only able to transform when he licked Uzen's finger. So, going by that logic, our guy immediately rushes into the house and starts searching for anything that has Uzen's personal effects that he can lick. The nasty creep is hoping he finds her creamy wet undies, but the only things he finds are her pair of smelly boots. So with no other option, at that instant, he suddenly half transforms into his beast form, and as he charges at the monster, he manages to punch the freaky beast into oblivion. After taking down the beast, his power depletes, and as he loses consciousness, he transforms back into human, and then lands perfectly inside Suruga's bouncy cleavage of dreams. Later that day, when Uzen and the girls return, she gives him a back massage as a reward for transforming, but then warns Suruga to never underestimate her opponents. And as punishment for her carelessness, Uzen commands Suruga to assist Yuki with his household chores, but the freaky girl likes it. Meanwhile, in another part of the Mato world, some groups of demon defense girls try to fight off a terrifying beast that managed to break into a barrier, but they were too useless and weak to fight the monster, so they got clapped. And as the monster picks up one of them to snack on, its rider appears, a mysterious evil girl ordering it to stop. Before long, Uzen travels with Yuki through an interdimensional portal back to Earth, as she doesn't want him to miss his homeworld too much. But apart from that, there's something special she also wants to do on Earth. So she takes Yuki to a grave site where she reveals her tragic past to him. She tells him about an incident that happened a long time ago, when she was just a little girl, during which dozens of monsters from Mato found a way to Earth. They massacred a lot of humans in her village, and one particularly strong monster with a single horn on its head did most of the butchering. She couldn't forget the image of this brutal monster, so she named the beast the Unihorn. Uzen goes on to explain that all the other monsters were later wiped out by the Demon Defense Force, who came to help, except the Unihorn, who managed to escape back to Mato through the gateway. She angrily admits she has a score to settle with this beast, and then tells Yuki that the reason she is revealing all this to him is so he can prepare for when she finally avenges all those who died back in her village. After paying her yearly respects to the dead in her village, Uzen decides they should head back to Mato. But when Yuki suggests they take a break for a bit to have some parfait, Uzen reluctantly agrees, but insists they make it a short break. While at the restaurant, Uzen expresses how worried she is about Mato's safety in her absence. Hearing this, Yuki then confides in her that he had lost his older sister when the Mato world suddenly appeared years back. Still, he advises her to take a break from work or else she'll burn out. As the waitress brings the parfait, Uzen takes a spoonful and then smiles, saying it's the best thing she's ever had.
That was so yummy!
Seeing a smile on Uzen's face for the first time makes Yuki have a flashback of how his sister used to smile anytime she tasted his cooking. She used to praise him so much back then for his exceptional cooking skills, which always made Yuki very happy. But suddenly, in the present, Uzen gets an alert on her phone, notifying her of an ongoing danger in Mato. So she immediately tells Yuki that the enjoyment is over, and then gives him her hand to kiss. Yuki is surprised that the crazy girl wants him to transform into a beast while they are on Earth, but Uzen tells him to hurry up. So as Yuki transforms, Uzen rides him at blinding speed to the nearest gateway, and in a matter of seconds, they are back home in Mato. For his reward, Uzen asks him to help her take off her socks, and the freaky degenerate wastes no time, enjoying every bit of the foot fetish. After they're done with the nastiness, Uzen and Yuki join the other girls. When Uzen asks what the alarming issue is, Nei informs her that a mysterious crater suddenly appeared somewhere in Mato, and from inside this crater, a large number of monsters are emerging. Wasting no time, Uzen commands that they leave immediately to wipe out the monsters. On getting to the target site, Suruga immediately increases her size and starts smashing the creatures with her giant fist, while Himari goes gun-blazing through the rest. It seems like the battle will be an easy one for the team, until a sudden burst of purple energy blast takes Suruga out. From the mist, Yuuki and Uzen are shocked to see the powerful unicorn they talked about back in the cemetery, and its rider, who wastes no time going after Himari, but she manages to escape. Himari is surprised to see that the mysterious girl riding the beast can talk like a human. But as the girl fires off another purple blast straight at her, Yuuki and Uzen deflect it, sending it into the sky. Uzen is determined not to let the unicorn beast escape this time. So when she demands to know who exactly the girl riding the beast is, the girl proudly introduces herself as Aoba and then says she is the Demon Defense Force's worst enemy. However, she says this time she isn't here to fight, as she is searching for her handsome little brother. But before Uzen can grasp what the lunatic is talking about, she attacks again with her unicorn beast and manages to send Yuuki crashing to the ground. But as she picks Yuuki up like a toy, ready to send him to the afterlife, she freezes in shock when she suddenly realizes that behind that monstrous beast is her younger brother Yuuki. However, at that moment, Uzen takes advantage of the distraction to slice off her arm. But before Uzen can finish off the crazy girl and her monster, the girl escapes with her beast, leaving Uzen fuming with so much bitterness and anger. Desperate not to let them escape, Uzen commands Yuuki to pursue, but then she pauses when she sees that her entire team is badly injured. So that night, while Suruga and Himari rest on the bed, to recover, Uzen gives Yuuki some balls massage as his reward for the day's task. When Uzen brings up the topic of the girl riding the unicorn and how crazy it is that she can speak human language, Yuuki opens up that he has a feeling the girl might be his lost sister. He explains that the girl had a strange reaction when she stared at him earlier, up close. However, Uzen isn't convinced that the girl is his sister, since she earlier called the brother she was looking for handsome, while Yuuki looks like an ape on a diet. Later that night, while making dinner in the kitchen, Yuuki can't stop thinking that the girl riding the unicorn might be his sister. But then he wonders why she would be the enemy of the Demon Defense Force, and most importantly, how she managed to stay alive after all these years. As he is lost in thought, thinking why his sister would be working with the horned monstrosity, Nei screams that the pot on fire is about to boil over. Seeing how stressed he is, Nei pats his head and thanks him for helping and rescuing the girls. As a show of gratitude, she tells him to rest, promising to handle the rest of the cooking for that night. But Yuuki tells her not to worry, since he doesn't want to eat dog poop for dinner. Meanwhile, in another part of the Mato world, Yuki's sister Aoba gets her arm regenerated by Koko, one of her team members. Aoba then shares with her team that she is certain the beast she fought with is Yuuki, her brother. But she is confused why the dude is a beast, and even more confused why a Demon Defense Force girl is riding him. However, she says she is excited to have finally reunited with her lost brother after so many years. At the same time, at the Demon Defense headquarters, Yuuki is trying to wash his disgusting body in peace when suddenly Suruga pops out of nowhere, offering to help wash his back. Yuuki freaks out and immediately disagrees, but the nutcase insists, saying it's her way of thanking him for saving her. But then, as she starts washing his back, she warns him that she is not putting on anything and not to turn around. However, since Yuuki thinks the girl is just messing with him, the buffoon turns to confirm if she is really naked, but freezes in shock when he sees her exposed balloons, and then immediately takes off running. But since the plot god isn't done with him just yet, our guy runs into the bathroom only to find Himari also with no plot coverage. As she's about to cut off his lizard head with a chainsaw, a portal appears and two pretty girls step out. Himari instantly recognizes them as members of the 6th Squad Demon Defense Force. The pretty blonde one introduces herself as Tenka, commander of the 6th Squad, while the emo-looking one is Himari's sister, who introduces herself as Yachiho. But suddenly, Tenka goes close to Yuuki and then seductively asks if he is the special slave she has heard so much about. Before Yuuki can respond, Tenka mentions that the reason they came is to see Uzen. So, while having tea later on with Uzen and the rest of the girls, Tenka reveals that the reason they came is because they received a memo from the Supreme Commander to combine forces if they are to stand any chance of battling the vicious humanoids and their monsters. But when Uzen says she has no problem merging her team with theirs, Yachiho interrupts, saying she has a problem with it. She says she heard that the second in command of Uzen's team, Himari, recently couldn't even fight off monsters. Because of this, the ugly tramp tells Uzen that her team is weak, so they can't put their trust in them. This pisses off Himari, and before she can say a word, Uzen immediately suggests they hold some kind of inter-squad exhibition match to see which team is the weakest. Tenka agrees to the idea, and then they return to their base through the portal. Once they leave, Himari asks Uzen to use her slave for the exhibition match. Uzen warns her that using Yuuki is physically demanding, but Himari says she doesn't care, as long as she gets to beat that chihuahua-faced sister of hers. So while having dinner that night, Yuuki asks Himari why she chose to force him into becoming her slave. Himari explains that it's for the sake of the exhibition match, and then tells him to get prepared for it. Meanwhile, Uzen is still furious about Yachiho's earlier arrogant attitude toward her and the team. So she tells Himari to make sure she beats the hell out of that Pennywise, and Himari angrily promises not to disappoint. To ensure her victory, she drives Yuuki to an open field where they can train. But on the way, she tells Yuuki that using guns isn't her only skill and that she can also copy other people's abilities too. She says all she has to do is select someone's ability on her phone and then implement it, like she wants to do with Commander Uzen's ability. However, on the way to the training spot, they get surrounded by a bunch of monsters, so Himari immediately gives Yuuki her hand to lick. The moment the cherry boy does, he instantly transforms into another kind of circus freak. So as the monsters attack, Yuuki realizes that in this new form, he is faster than Flash. But when he punches, he also realizes that his punch is as weak as Jake Paul's. So to defeat the monsters, he attacks with 1,000,000 punches and is finally able to eliminate all of them. After the battle, Yuuki returns to his human form. But for his sweet reward, Himari suddenly realizes she is somehow showing Yuuki her undies. She freaks out. And when she demands to know what is happening to her, Yuuki tells her it's the price of using Uzen's ability. The more Himari tries to hold herself back, the worse it gets. And this time, she finds herself on top of the boy, letting him have a taste of her peach juice. As they head home after training, Yuuki asks Himari why she is so desperate to win. This question makes Himari share her tragic past with him. She reveals that she has older sisters who are more successful than she is, so everyone expected her to be just like them. But unfortunately, she was completely useless in everything she did. Because of her weakness, Yachiho always made a mockery of her whenever she couldn't keep up. So to prove she isn't a weakling, she cut ties with her family ever since. However, Himari says her ultimate goal is to become a hero like Commander Uzen. So because of this goal, she has to do everything possible to beat Yachiho in the match. But to beat Yachiho, Himari tells Yuuki that they need to figure out a finishing move that will demolish the enemy. Yuuki agrees with her, but when Himari tells him that Yachiho has the ability to control, freeze, and rewind time like Doctor Strange, Yuuki realizes they are screwed. However, Himari tells him that even though Yachiho possesses such a dangerous ability, she will get tired eventually when she uses it too many times. So the plan is to wear her out and then beat her with the finishing move they are yet to practice. So when Yuuki suggests they take advantage of his enhanced speed as a finishing move, Himari agrees. But then she also suggests they combine it with enough force to knock Yachiho completely out of the fight. To do that, she tells Yuuki to channel all his strength into a single part of his body. Yuuki obeys, and as he gathers his strength from deep within, he channels it into his leg, expanding it in size. So as they continue the training the next day, Uzen visits them on the training ground to see how Himari is preparing for the fight. But when Uzen notices that Himari isn't riding Yuuki like she does, she advises her to do so, explaining that riding him is the fundamental essence of her ability. With this in mind, Himari immediately jumps on Yuuki and tells him that she will be riding him during the exhibition match. Himari now understands that the whole essence of Uzen's ability is not just to sit back and coach, but to get on top of the slave, seize the chain, and then issue commands like a master. Doing this instantly changes the way Yuuki fights. His speed increases, and when he channels all his strength into his fist, he unleashes a flawless finishing move that pierces through the monster, creating a hole wider than the one between Himari's thighs. After the intense training, Yuuki is completely drained and exhausted, so as his reward, Himari gives him a strip show. When the day of the exhibition match finally arrives, Tenka, Yachiho, and another blonde named Wakasa teleport inside the house, ready to show what their team is capable of. Before the match starts, Yachiho approaches Himari and tries to destroy her confidence by reminding her of her past failures. But when Yuuki shows up, he boosts her confidence by assuring her that they will win, since they've been training non-stop for the past couple of days. Shortly afterwards, as the exhibition match commences, a girl known as Gina creates a powerful barrier that protects everyone and also heals anyone who sustains any injuries during the fight. As the referee, Gina declares the match open and announces that the first match will be between Himari of the 7th Squadron and Yachiho of the 6th Squadron. Yachiho is confident it will be an easy win, so she tells Himari that if she wins, she's dragging her back home to be her servant. So as the match starts, Yuuki immediately transforms into his beast form. So while Yachiho is still bragging about her victory, Yuuki lands a powerful punch that sends the ugly bitch flying. But at that moment, Yachiho rewinds time to a few minutes before the start of the fight. However, when Himari notices the fatigue on her face, she realizes that the girl has used her powers. So for the next attack, Himari suggests they change tactics, and this time, Yuuki leaps into the sky and starts descending with the intention of knocking Yachiho out. But Yachiho suddenly pulls out a gun and is ready to use her freeze ability again. As they're about to land, Himari immediately commands Yuuki to get ready for the finishing move. Yuuki obeys and with lightning speed, slams a powerful kick into Yachiho. This is meant to knock her out, but shockingly, it doesn't. So the spoiled brat activates her freeze ability again to rewind time 5 seconds. This time, Yachiho is already aware of Himari's airborne finishing move, so she decides to freeze time before they can pull it off. However, when she looks up, she's shocked to see that Himari and Yuuki are gone. Instead, she turns to see the duo by her side and completely out of range, but as she runs toward them to close the distance, time runs out on her freeze ability. Himari is excited that her plan to make Yachiho waste her ability is working. As they start running in circles around Yachiho at bullet speed, Yachiho gets frustrated. While running, Yuuki can sense how badly Himari wants to win, which strengthens his resolve to help her achieve that goal. Meanwhile, watching the fight from up the cliff, Tenka is highly impressed seeing Yuki's devotion to a new master. Himari is also stunned seeing how Yuuki is giving it his all to ensure she wins, and this fuels her determination to destroy Yachiho at all costs. So as a team, they continue to dodge Yachiho's bullets to drain her energy and frustrate her further. But when Yachiho finally figures out their plan, she decides to play the trump card she's been keeping for the last moment. So instead of freezing time for 5 seconds, she casts a powerful spell that freezes time for 10 seconds. As time freezes, she closes the distance and fires multiple times at Himari and Yuuki. When the 10 seconds are over, the bullets hit Yuuki and Himari, crashing them to the ground and leaving them badly injured. But instead of finishing off her opponents, the midget starts bragging, calling herself the goat of time freezing. This little delay is all Yuuki needs to regain a small bit of his energy, and just when Himari feels like all hope is lost, Yuuki motivates her not to give up, explaining that Yachiho is already exhausted after using her trump card. When he assures her that they're very close to victory, Himari summons her courage and pulls herself up from the ground. Yachiho freezes in shock, seeing her opponent back on her feet, but she remains confident. As Himari and Yuuki launch another attack, Yachiho freezes time again. However, this time, Yuuki immediately transforms back into human form, and the light from his transformation blinds Yachiho. When she tries to shoot, she sees only the image of Yuuki in front of her and is stunned when she can't see Himari. Still, as she fires at Yuuki, her freeze ability wears off. But right then, Himari shoots her from underneath. With everybody now on the ground, Himari raises her hand to show she is the only one still conscious, so Jinna immediately announces her as the winner of the match. While Suruga and Nei cheer them on, Uzen is proud of her team. A few minutes later, Yuki's gunshot wounds are healed by Ginna, and after he is completely healed, he complains that he is dying of thirst. So Himari agrees to accompany him back inside the house for some water. But just as they are about to leave, Yachiho, whose wounds have also been healed, asks them to wait. She acknowledges that Himari has become stronger than her and then promises to treat her better from now on. But when she asks if Himari would be returning home with her, Himari refuses, insisting that she now belongs to the 7th Squadron and is never coming back home, leaving Yachiho in shock. Upon entering the house, Himari gulps down a bottle of water from the fridge. But when Yuuki tries to also get water from the fridge, Himari stops him and then rewards him with all the water he needs directly from her mouth. Meanwhile, back at the battleground, Suruga notices that Himari and Yuuki have been taking a long time inside the house, so she says she's going to check on them. As she heads inside, she's excited about her upcoming match and decides she will use this opportunity to impress Yuuki with her skills. Also, back inside the house, Himari thanks Yuuki for helping her defeat Yachiho. She kisses him again to show her gratitude, and this time gives him a sloppy kiss with her tongue, causing him to climax instantly. She also apologizes for treating him worse than trash when he first arrived at the house. But as the steamy moment unfolds, Suruga spies on them and is shocked at what she has just witnessed. Later on the battlefield, as Wakasa and Suruga prepare for their match, 3 demon humanoids watch the fight with interest from a cliff above. Soon, Ginna announces round 2 of the duel, which is between Suruga and Wakasa. However, before the fight starts, Suruga turns to Yuuki and confidently tells him to watch as she dominates the fight. She then quietly whispers that she also wants a taste of his sausage as a reward. When the fight begins, Suruga wastes no time, charging at Wakasa to get a quick win. But when she accidentally slips, Wakasa grabs her by the waist and delivers an impressive Brock Lesnar suplex. This pisses off Suruga, so as she activates her giant powers, Wakasa also activates her special ability known as Mad Sheep, which gives her the strength of 1,000 supermen. Both girls begin attacking each other, but Wakasa's strength completely overwhelms the weak giant. Wakasa starts hurling stones at her, and as Suruga tries to dodge, she is taken aback when Wakasa suddenly appears in front of her and then punches her right in the gut. As Suruga crashes to the ground, she looks at Yuuki and recalls the promise she made to beat Wakasa like a useless thief. However, when she manages to get up, she begins to question why she is even fighting so hard in the first place. This brings a flashback of when she was still in school, and one of her friends talked about her boyfriend so passionately. But back then, she wasn't interested in having a boyfriend, and all she desired was to join the defense force. But now, in the present, as she looks at Yuuki, Suruga is determined to win this fight and experience what it actually means to have a boyfriend. So she doubles her size and lands on top of Wakasa. Still, Wakasa tries to hold on, but Suruga picks her up like a fly and slams her on the hard ground, knocking her unconscious. But just when everyone thinks Suruga has won the duel, Wakasa, while still unconscious, goes full Super Saiyan, surprising everyone. As she attacks with the speed of lightning, she rips Suruga's chest armor apart and then topples her over, winning the duel. A few minutes later, after Jinna heals her wounds, Suruga apologizes to Uzen and Himari for being a worthless failure. But Uzen tells her it's fine, saying all she needs is to improve and get better. However, as Suruga heads back into the house, she cries, thinking she has lost all her aura in the eyes of Yuuki and is now a complete disappointment. But Yuuki notices her crying, so he decides to visit her room later on to cheer her up. When Suruga says she's embarrassed to look him in the face because of her horrible performance, Yuuki tells her that it wasn't that bad and admits he would have loved to watch more of her fight. Hearing this cheers Suruga up, so she finally opens her room door and then kisses him. Yuuki freaks out at the unexpected kiss, but what shocks him the most is seeing that Suruga's bare, plotful chest is staring at him in 4K. Meanwhile, outside on the battlefield, Uzen instructs Nei to use her powers to scan the environment for any sign of monsters. As she does, she immediately detects the presence of 2 dangerous humanoids spying from a cliff. Before she can report what she has just seen, thousands of monsters pop out from the ground and start charging at them. But as Ginna tells everyone to chill, confident that her barrier is impenetrable, a disgusting giant humanoid known as Ryren appears and breaks the barrier, just like they break your mom's back every night. With their defenses now down, Uzen immediately calls off the exhibition match and orders everyone to get ready for war. So Tenka teleports Nei and Gina, the non-combatants, out of the battlefield, while Uzen and the rest of the girls attack the monsters. Just then, as Suruga and Yuuki rush from the house to join the party, Suruga immediately transforms into her giant form and starts playing with the monsters like footballs. When a monster almost strikes her face, Wakasa saves her, and together they work as a team rather than opponents to cover more ground. Meanwhile, Himari goes after Ryren and tries to shoot him down with her guns, but the big guy stops her bullets like they are nothing and almost burns her to crisp if not for Yachiho's intervention. Realizing that Ryren might be a hard one to bring down, Yachiho acts like the elder sister by asking Himari to let her handle him. At the same time, Yuuki, now transformed into a beast, fights with Uzen as his rider. But suddenly, Himari runs to meet them, asking to ride on Yuki's back too. 2 masters have never ridden a slave beast before, but Uzen is willing to give it a try. When she asks Himari to go ahead, Himari gives Yuki her hand, and the instant Yuki kisses her hand, he transforms into a more powerful form, combining the attributes of both girls into one, forming one warlord. With both Uzen and Himari now riding him, Yuki fires off a powerful blast that obliterates 50% of the monsters on the battlefield. Meanwhile, on the other part of the battlefield, Yachiho continues to freeze time just to evade Reiren's Thunderstrike, but she soon becomes exhausted after using her time-freezing skill multiple times. At that moment, Reiren is ready to finish her once and for all, but as he opens his stinky mouth to fire off a terrible blast that will shred her to pieces, Tenka appears from nowhere to stop the attack. With the most sincere smile, she asks Yachiho to leave the Megatron wannabe to her, and Yachiho gladly obeys. When Reiren brags about his army closing in on her, Tenka clears the haze around them so he can see that his entire useless army has already been neutralized by her mystic powers. Reiren can't believe his eyes, but Tenka tells him to get ready to meet his ancestors. Meanwhile, as the monsters keep regenerating, Uzen slices a giant monster clean in half while Wakasa delivers a supercharged kick to another, eliminating it instantly and leaving only Tenka to face Rairen. But Rairen is still bragging, confident he can beat Tenka, so he summons a powerful surge of electricity and blasts her. But just when he thinks the attack fried her, Tenka teleports out of nowhere and aims a kick at his clown-looking face, which he narrowly dodges. Rairen gets insulted by her weak attack, so he continues to fire Tenka with numerous balls of energy, but she evades each one by teleporting through portals she creates. Frustrated and angry, Rairen unleashes a mighty surge of blue aura and then blasts her with massive lightning. But just when he is confident that she can never survive his powerful attack, Tenka teleports in front of him and lands a powerful punch to his face, forcing him backwards. With Rairen now disoriented, this is the opportunity Tenka has been waiting for. So she claps her hands, tearing apart the fabric of space, and unleashes a strong whirlwind that sweeps Rairen away, vanquishing him. Later that day at the Demon Defense Headquarters, the entire squadron holds a meeting where Uzen informs everyone that, according to Nei's report, other demon generals were present on the battlefield who didn't involve themselves in the war. When Suruga speculates that Yuki's explosion might have obliterated them together with the monsters, Tenka says she is not so sure. After the meeting, Tenka approaches Yuki in the room and praises him for his courage on the battlefield, but Yuki tries to downplay his efforts, saying she was far more impressive. Just then, Gina rushes over like an obsessed fangirl, saying she watched his performance on the battlefield and it was amazing, and then asks for his autograph. Meanwhile, when Himari thanks Yachiho for saving her life, Yachiho proudly tells her that she only saved her because she didn't want her bringing shame to the family's name. But when she asks Himari to return home so she can train her properly, Himari refuses, stating that the 7th Squadron is her true home. At the end of the day, Uzen and Tenka decide to call the duel a draw, and with that, Tenka and her team teleport back to their base. As soon as they leave, Yuki, exhausted, mutters that all he wants is a refreshing bath. But just as those words leave his mouth, Uzen and Himari enter the bathroom with him. And as they start stripping, Yuki panics, realizing this must be his reward. The following day, Uzen, Yuki, and Himari drive to the 6th Division dorm for a visit, and when they arrive, they are greeted by Teikon, who gives them a tour of the facility. After walking around the house, Uzen and Teikon decide to have a private meeting. So Uzen instructs Himari to get acquainted with the rest of the 6th Division members, while Yuki offers to help clean their dorm. But as he readies himself to start cleaning, he is shocked to find out that the place is already spotless. So, as he decides to do the laundry instead, he almost loses his freaky mind when he finds the laundry room clustered with mushy female undies. Meanwhile, Suruga is back home, missing Yuki and wishing she had accompanied them to the 6th Division. When she remembers the kiss they shared earlier, she decides to improve herself so Yuki will find her more attractive. Back at the 6th Division, Yuki, being a nice guy, picks up some washed clothes to deliver to Yachiho's room. So he knocks on the door, but when there's no response, he foolishly barges in. And that's when he discovers Yachiho's room is filled with photos of Himari, revealing that Yachiho is madly obsessed with her younger sister. The disturbing sight leaves Yuki in shock, so he quickly shuts the door and runs off to avoid having a mental breakdown. But as he runs into the living room, he meets another trouble waiting for him. Wakasa is sleeping on the couch with nothing on except her peach cover. As he tries to cover her up from catching a cold, the crazy girl thinks he is some soft plushie and immediately pins him down in her plots. The more he struggles, the deeper his mouth dives into her ocean of bliss. Later that day, Himari takes advantage of the opportunity to be in the house to see her sister. But when she sees Yachiho training like a junkie, she decides to wait for her to finish. When Yachiho is done with her training, Himari approaches her and they have an intimate sister-to-sister talk. Meanwhile, Uzen and Tenka are having tea and biscuits as they discuss their next move concerning the demonic humanoids. When Uzen suggests they should track them down and strike first, Tenka, however, expresses curiosity about how many humanoids there truly are, since the investigation has confirmed 4. But when Uzen reminds her that she defeated one of the 4, hinting at Rairen, Tenka voices her doubt that the big guy might not be truly dead, since she is getting a different vibe. Somewhere deep inside Mato, Rairen, who narrowly avoided being sucked into Tenka's space rift, returns and meets with 2 other sinister humanoids, a white-haired girl named Juryu and a dark-haired one named Shikoku. Apparently, Shikoku was the one who saved him by pulling him from getting swallowed in Tenka's space rift. Since Rairen's plan to invade the Demon Defense Force has failed woefully, Shikoku restructures and decides they will strike again once they are 8 in number. But for now, she says they will only operate from the shadows. At the same time, back at the defense residence after concluding the meeting, Tenka gives Uzen the shock of her life by asking if she can have Yuki as her slave. Tekna explains that even though she is young and successful, her personal life is boring, so she wants Yuki to be her boy toy, to help her unwind after long days and add excitement to her dull life. Sensing Uzen's hesitation, Tenka then offers Uzen a tempting deal. She says that if Uzen agrees to give her Yuki, she will support her candidacy in the upcoming Supreme Commander election. Even though the offer is very tempting, Uzen refuses, saying she will become Supreme Commander on her own terms, and not by giving out her slave. So shortly afterwards, as they drive back to their base, Uzen informs Yuki that Tenka wants him as her slave, leaving him stunned. However, when Yuki reassures her that his life purpose is to be their caretaker, Uzen tells him that he can do whatever he likes and that she has absolutely no say in his personal choices. Later that night, as Yuki lies in bed, he thinks about the situation with Tenka and wonders why such a hot baddie would be interested in a rizless goat like him. But suddenly, Tenka teleports into his room, shocking him, and starts doing all sorts of nasty things to the wabi clapper. But while doing this, she explains that she actually has a big crush on him and wants him as her boyfriend, not her slave. However, Yuki tries to remain a virgin protagonist, but the girl teleports his shirt away and is determined to milk his sausage dry. But just then, Tsuruga suddenly bursts into the room to ask Yuki to play video games with her, and freezes in shock at the rated 18 scene going on. Shortly after, Uzen scolds Tekna for teleporting into her dorm to ravage her slave and orders the thirsty whore to leave immediately. But as Tekna gets up to leave, she tells Yuki she isn't finished exploring his manly features and then teleports back to her dorm. The next day, during training, Uzen informs the girls that she is willing to lend Yuki to them to test their unique abilities on him and see which ones would be most effective in combat against the monsters. So Nei goes first, and as she mounts Yuki and grabs his chains, Yuki transforms into a giant Power Ranger from Temu. When they test out his ability, they realize he fights like a Disney princess, but has super X-ray vision that can see through the girl's melon covers. After Yuki transforms back into human form, Nei kisses him on the cheek as his reward, but then she starts glitching in embarrassment and complaining that she can't control her body. Realizing that every girl gets to give the cherry boy a reward after usage, Tsuruga insists on trying next. But when she does, Yuki transforms into a monstrous troll, which turns out to be totally useless in combat. Even when Tsuruga activates Go Big mode while mounting Yuki, she only ends up transforming into a giant, while Yuki stays small and helpless. Because of this, Uzen declares that Tsuruga is never allowed to mount Yuki ever again, and then explains that for now, she'll only prioritize Yuki's attributes with Nei as the rider. Just then, an alarm suddenly blares, signaling that Nei is late for school. As Nei hurries inside to get ready, Yuki is surprised because he has no idea the dwarf doubles as both a student and a member of the Demon Defense Squad. So, as Nei is about to leave, Yuuki asks Uzen if he can walk her off, explaining that he would love to learn more about her. Uzen agrees and gives him an exit pass, which they use to teleport to Japan. While walking to school, Yuki asks Nei why she joined the Demon Defense Squad despite being so young and still in school. So Nei explains that her parents suddenly went missing during a mato accident, so she joined the defense force in hopes of finding them, and because serving in the squad is an honorable mission. Hearing this, Yuki tries to cheer her up by reassuring her that her parents are alive and that she will see them again one day. Meanwhile, back at the dorm as Uzen and Tenka share lunch, Tenka informs Uzen that the Supreme Commander has ordered them not to engage the humanoids even if they find their location until they have enough information. She guesses that the Supreme Commander's goal is to dialogue with the humanoids to evaluate how intelligent they really are. However, Tenka believes it is just a waste of time and that the humanoids are not the type to engage in dialogue. Shortly after, Yuki and Nei return from school to find Tekna in the house. Tekna then starts teasing Yuki, but this makes Uzen jealous. However, before she can tell the bitch to quit touching her slave boy, an alarm suddenly blares, signaling the appearance of monsters nearby. Wasting no time, the team immediately drives to the location. But on the way, they see multiple portals and gateways from which several monsters start emerging. So to help out, Tenka teleports to the monster site. But Uzen, still salty about her attitude towards her slave, rejects her help and reminds Tenka that the area is outside her jurisdiction. So Tenka then turns her attention to Yuki instead and starts harassing him. But Uzen, still jealous, immediately orders Yuki to hurry, and as he kisses her hand, he transforms. But just then, Uzen is unable to hold her jealousy anymore. So she retracts her earlier statement of not interfering in his life. and then declares that from that moment on, Yuuki is not allowed to admire another squad commander because he is her slave and hers alone. That said, they charge at the monsters and effortlessly defeat them. But when a new type of monster with 10 heads emerges from the ground, everyone is shocked. However, Uzen and Yuuki cut it down without even breaking a sweat. All the while, Shikoku, the creator of these new breeds of monsters, watches from a distance and is impressed that Uzen and Yuuki are able to defeat her creation. When Joryu asks what she hopes to achieve with all this, Shikoku says she is just having fun, and that the monsters the squad defeated are mere child's play meant only to test their capabilities. Meanwhile, Tekna teleports back to her base, but after seeing the connection between Yuuki and Uzen, she becomes even more obsessed with getting Yuuki for herself at all costs. On the other hand, back at the battlefield, Yuuki and Uzen continue to obliterate the monsters. But this time, Yuuki performs more than expected, so Uzen pats his head and then compliments him for the very first time. After eliminating the monsters, Yuki's reward is to carry Uzen like a princess. Even though Uzen is embarrassed at how ridiculous the reward is, she has no choice but to endure and to conclude that they share a nice kiss. Later that day at the house, as the team gathers for lunch, Yuuki receives praise for his exceptional cooking skills. When Tenka asks if he has always been talented at cooking, Yuuki mentions that he learned a lot from his older sister Aoba when he was younger. The girls are surprised to hear so when Tenka asks what his sister is like. Yuuki narrates through a flashback when he was weak and little, and how he would always get bullied by an older jerk and a younger brat. But his sister was always there to stand up for him, and even beat up his bullies. Back in the present, after hearing his story, the girls commend how good his big sister is for standing up to him. To compensate him for all he did that day, Uzen orders him to take the day off. But as Yuuki excitedly leaves, Nei begins to glow, alerting the team that she senses someone is in danger close by. Without waiting a second, Himari and Tsuruga quickly take a vehicle to rescue the person. When they arrive, they see a hooded girl being chased by several monsters. But after Himari unleashes a hail of bullets to fend off the monsters, she approaches the child to check if she is alright. But as the girl suddenly punches Himari in the stomach, they realize she is a humanoid and it had been a trap. The girl then takes off her hood, and as she reveals her name to be Coco, she threatens that her intention is to make them suffer. With a snap of her fingers, Coco summons a giant monster and more lesser monsters. But when Himari tries to reason with her, assuring her that their supreme commander is open to negotiations, Coco laughs and it tells her to continue dreaming. She says all she wants to do is crush them. Meanwhile, back at the house, Yuuki notices that his body is covered in cuts and bruises from the battle. But when he stares at the mirror to see his jacked abs, he's glad he has a hot body. Just then, Uzen and Nei suddenly burst into the bathroom to see his dangling Excalibur. But Uzen has more pressing issues, as she informs him that Himari and Tsuruga are in trouble, so he needs to transform. Back on the battlefield, Himari fires the beast Coco summoned with every ammunition in her arsenal, but her bullets are useless against the beast's impenetrable hide. But as Coco begins to mock her, Himari decides to release a massive energy blast at the monster, but it dodges, and Coco sees the opportunity to attack mid-air. At the same time, Tsuruga, in her giant form, squashes a bug with her palm, only to realize it is no ordinary bug. The bug, with superhuman strength, pries open her hand, revealing another humanoid girl called Yuno, who wastes no time piercing Tsuruga's face with a spear. Meanwhile, Uzen and Yuuki are on their way to assist the girls when they are suddenly ambushed by Yuki's sister, Aoba. Before they can act, Aoba takes a bite of a purple fruit known as a peach, and then uses her long hair to restrain Yuuki. She then creates a diversion with a monster, which Uzen swiftly cuts down, but she later realizes Aoba has disappeared with Yuuki. Shortly after, as the girls regroup, they think it through, and finally realize that the monsters they fought were just a diversion. Yuuki was the true target. Hours later, deep in a cave, Yuuki wakes up to find Coco smearing her tongue over his body, claiming her medicinal saliva is healing his injuries. Yuuki tries to resist, but she pins him down using her cakes. Just then, Aoba enters, and seeing Coco violating her brother, she becomes extremely furious and immediately stretches out Coco like a bedsheet. But after Yuno intervenes, explaining that Coco only helped heal Yuki's wound, Aoba then playfully grabs Coco and starts teasing her. Seeing how playful Aoba is, Yuki figures Aoba is his sister, so Aoba walks close and envelops him in her embrace. Later on, Aoba then shows Yuki around their hidden village, explaining that they were once human but changed in appearance due to an accident. When she suggests that Yuki should remain with them, Yuuki urges them to consider opening a dialogue with the demon defense squad instead of hiding. But his suggestion gives him a cold stare from the girls, making it clear that peace talks are not an option, since the squad is their sworn enemy. Back at the defense squad's dorm, the girls are worried about Yuki's absence, but they know Uzen is restricted by the Supreme Commander's order not to engage the humanoids yet. But while they discuss, Uzen suddenly rushes to meet them and then reveals that her body is starting to move on its own, which means Yuki's transformation is broken, and she desperately needs to give him his reward. Since she is yet to reward him, that makes her a living, breathing Yuuki detection radar. Meanwhile, back in the cave, Yuuki notices Aoba eating the purple peach, and when he asks what it is, Aoba explains what it is, and then points out that only a few dare to consume them. She also adds that their monster appearance is a result of eating the peaches. At the same time, back at the defense dorm, Uzen and the girls ready themselves for battle, but they aren't the only ones, as Tekna and her team also teleport to the base, prepared to join the fight. In the cave, Aoba is about to explain how eating a peach transformed her into this disgusting monster, but Yuno interrupts, insisting her own story is more detailed. Yuno shares that in her world, she was once a beautiful model until a mishap with the mato occurred. While trapped inside the mato, she is attacked by the monsters, but driven by her love for beauty, she thinks eating a peach might give her rejuvenating abilities. So she runs to a peach tree, plucks one, and eats it, but its power goes haywire, causing her to pass out. When she wakes up, she finds herself in a facility that studies monsters. She is used as a test subject, and her once beautiful body is no longer the same. She soon discovers she has gained the power to phase through objects and manages to escape. Aoba also explains that a similar incident happened to her after she ate a peach. However, she says she fought to hold on to her human intellect, and later on, she discovered the cave. Hearing this, Yuki suggests they expose what is happening inside the mato, but Aoba quickly interjects, saying the bureau in charge of the mato would just shut them down, as its existence serves the country's interests. However, Coco angrily declares that they will tear down the bureau and then summons her monster pet. Yuki tries to stop them, suggesting they speak with the Demon Defense Force, who might be unaware of the situation, but Aoba points out that the Demon Defense Force knows everything that is going on. Coco adds that the Demon Defense Force cannot be trusted. However, Aoba assures Yuki that they are perfectly capable of finding a way to fix the mess themselves and don't need the demon's defense. At that moment, the girls of the Demon Defense Force, still led by Uzen's impulses, teleport into the cave looking for Yuki. But before they move deeper inside the cave, Uzen warns them that saving Yuki is their #1 priority, so they should avoid combat whenever possible. When Yachiho asks what they should do if the humanoids attack, Uzen instructs them to follow the commander's command to only push for dialogue. However, just then, they were immediately attacked by monsters, and after taking down the monsters effortlessly, Coco and her pet burst out of the cave. Wakasa and Tsuruga then decide to face off against Coco and her monstrous pet, while the rest of the team advances deeper into the cave. But halfway inside, they are ambushed by Yuno's pet and other monsters. So Himari and Yachiho then instruct Uzen and Tenka to go on ahead while they handle the fight in front of them. They agree, so Tenka creates a portal from which they leave and then teleport right where Aoba and Yuki are. Before Aoba can even respond, Tenka easily teleports Yuki out of there faster than Eminem would drop a rap bar, shocking Aoba, who doesn't know Tenka can teleport. On getting to a safe area, Uzen decides to give Yuki his reward by treating him to the best manicure session ever. But Tenka, feeling left out, also joins, and together, the creamy girls give Yuki the best finger licking in the history of finger licking. But Aoba suddenly interrupts the licking spree and angrily charges at them for turning her brother into a human lollipop. However, Yuki steps in, asking Aoba to calm down while he talks to his harem like a reasonable person. This pisses off Aoba, who yells at him to get out of her way, but Yuki stands his ground, begging her to calm down. As Aoba realizes she can't refuse him, especially when he begs that way, she smiles and then tells him to go ahead. Meanwhile, Wakasa and Tsuruga try to talk some sense into Coco, but the girl is more stubborn than a goat, so they decide they will have to knock some sense into her stubborn skull instead. Above the scene, Joryu watches silently as the events unfold. After explaining the issues with the peaches turning the girls into monsters and the Bureau's inhumane treatment, Uzen suggests Aoba and her group stand down and leave justice to them. However, Aoba refuses, stating she cannot trust Uzen and her squad, not after they treat her brother as their slave. Yuki explains he chooses to be a slave willingly to fulfill his dreams of becoming a hero, but Aoba ignores him, tying him up with her hair and summoning Unihorn. Uzen chooses to fight the unicorn in revenge, while Tenka faces off with Aoba, declaring herself as Yuki's girlfriend and therefore Aoba's sister-in-law. This infuriates Aoba, who swears she will take her down. At the same time, Yachiho tries to shoot down Yuno's pet, but it creates a shield, blocking her attacks. She then summons her golden hour, freezing time, and blasts the beast, eliminating it instantly. This gives Yuno the opportunity to strike at Himari. The scene then shifts to a castle where Juryu reports the fight between Aoba's team and the Demon Defense Force. Shikoku, upon hearing this, is pleased, saying it is the perfect moment for them to introduce themselves as gods. Back at the fight scene, Uzen slices through the unicorn's body like a fruit ninja master, while Tenka uses her teleportation skills to dodge all of Aoba's attacks. Despite Aoba's incredible speed, Tenka has no trouble evading her since she can teleport 666 times in a row. Meanwhile, Tsuruga and Wakasa find it nearly impossible to defeat Koko and her insanely powerful pet. When Koko hears they are there to rescue Yuki, she teases them, saying Yuki is perfectly fine where he is and doesn't need rescuing. He is living his best life, enjoying intense plot development with them. These words enrage Tsuruga, and she tells Wakasa it is time to execute their planned formation. Tsuruga immediately shrinks herself to a size smaller than Tinkerbell, and Wakasa scoops her up in her hands as they flee. Seeing them retreat, Koko and her monster pet give chase, but this is exactly what they want. Wakasa suddenly turns, launching a tiny Tsuruga at them, and the monster pet swallows her whole. However, inside its gut, Tsuruga then activates her giant mode, tearing the creature apart from the inside, while Wakasa uses the distraction to launch an attack on Koko, injuring her severely. Meanwhile, Yachiho, realizing Himari is almost at the point of death, activates Golden Hour, rewinding time by 10 minutes. But because she is unable to figure out where exactly Yuno is, every time she rewinds time, Himari always ends up in a dangerous situation. Himari can see how exhausted Yachiho is, which proves to her that Yachiho has been rewinding time this whole time just to protect her. So when she pulls out her gun and starts firing, Yuno disappears again, becoming totally invisible. Realizing that shooting gun is useless if she doesn't lure the enemy out first, Himari tells Yachiho that she has a plan. She says it's a secret weapon she had been saving for the rainy day. When Yachiho asks what this weapon is, Himari explains that it's actually her first time using it, but she is certain it would be able to lure Yuno out of hiding. Yachiho is a bit doubtful about this idea, but Himuro assures her it would work if she would only trust her. So as Yachiho agrees, Himari takes off her hairband, letting her hair down. Then, suddenly, out of her hair, multiple guns emerge, which she fires sporadically around the cave. As the bullets pierce through the walls of the cave, Yuno has no choice but to come out of hiding. With her location now certain, Yachiho then rewinds time 10 seconds right to when Himari is about to take off her headband. She tells Himari not to worry that her plan worked, and then accurately pinpoints where exactly Yuno and her beast are hiding. As Himari fires multiple times at that exact spot, the bullets hit Yuno and her beast. At the same time, Tenka manages to place Aoba in the perfect spot to trap her in a space rift. But just as she is about to act, memories of Yuki and Aoba flood her mind, causing her to hesitate. This gives Aoba the opening to blast Tenka with powerful mystic energy, sending her collapsing to the ground, wounded and exhausted. When Aoba asks why she hesitated when she had the chance, Tenka tells her that she felt ending her life would have made Yuki very upset. Aoba is surprised to hear this, but then she smiles, realizing that Tenka had actually put her brother's feelings into consideration. So she stops the fight, saying she is willing to look the other way, but that does not mean they've changed their minds about storming the bureau. Just then, Yuno and Koko arrive, battered and bruised, followed by the Demon Defense Force members. When Aoba demands that Uzen and her team surrender and return to their base,
I surrender! Oh.
Uzen flatly refuses. So, as they are about to start round 2 of the fight, a bright light appears. From it emerges Juryu, carrying Shikoku, making an unforgettable entrance. Shikoku announces that they are the 8 Thunder Gods, leaders of the monsters, and have no connection whatsoever to Aoba and her weak minions. She adds that their mission is to eliminate all of humanity. Just then, Koko Pet charges to attack, but Juryu casts a powerful gust of wind that sweeps the beast away. Pissed, Aoba attempts to attack, but is countered by her own pet unicorn, which Shikoku explains has been bitten by one of the snakes on her head. The monster then goes berserk, turning on Aoba with deadly intent. But just as it is about to land a final blow, Yuki, transformed into his beast form, intervenes, and the 2 monstrous creatures charge at each other. However, at that moment, Uzen has a brief flashback of how her village was destroyed, with everyone massacred by Unihorn. Fueled by this memory, she charges at the Unihorn alongside Yuuki. Meanwhile, Juryu leaves Shikoku behind and then captures an unconscious Koko and Yuno. Yuuki soon begins to overpower the Unihorn, causing it to morph into an even deadlier form. The two beasts clash in a fierce battle until Yuuki sinks his teeth into Unihorn's tail, shattering it. Uzen then finishes the job, slicing the beast's entire body to pieces. With Unihorn annihilated, Shikoku immediately teleports out of the cave, impressed not only by the intensity of the fight, but also by Yuki's determination and ferocity. Afterwards, Uzen tells Aoba there is no longer any need for them to fight, as she and her friends are also victims of the Mato incident, and then vows to do everything she can to help Aoba rescue her friends. Later that night, the team returns to the dorm, where Yuki is handsomely rewarded by clapping the hell out of Uzen. So the next day, they celebrate their safe return with a feast and a toast. That night, Yuki has a brief flashback of his sister and Uzen. Uzen has sworn to become the Supreme Commander, reform the demon defense policies, eradicate all the monsters from the dimension, and find a cure for Aoba and her friends. This gives Aoba peace of mind, and she hugs Yuki, places a stuffed toy in his hand, and leaves, promising to constantly watch over him. Back in the present, Yuki resolves to find a cure for his sister. Later that same night, a thirsty Tenka teleports into Yuki's room, ready to commence some clapping session, but Uzen interrupts them. As she leaves, Tenka promises to find a way to be alone with Yuki, even if it is the last thing she does. Days later, while they are training, Nei alerts the team to an open gateway where monsters are converging. The team rushes to the site, with Yuki transforming into his beast form and riding Uzen there at incredible speed. When they arrive, they unleash chaos on the monsters, while Aoba keeps her promise of watching over Yuki closely. She vows she will not rest until she finds her missing friends. Will Yuki and the team manage to rescue Koko and Yuno and bring an end to the monsters? Comment. Part 2 if you're eager to find out in the next part. Also, if you enjoyed this recap, smash the like button and watch a similar one over here.